President of Marketing at eFolder and your host for today's webinar. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. Today's presentation is Cloud Retention Policies, what you and your clients need to know. First, let's cover a few housekeeping items before we go through today's agenda. Today's session is being recorded. The recorded version of the webinar will be made available on eFolder's YouTube channel. We will also make copies of the slides available to those who registered for the event. With over 200 people registered for today's session, we have put all participants in listen-only mode. You can enjoy the audio portion of today's event either by streaming it on your computer or by dialing in over the phone. Today's webinar follows a logical flow. We will begin by reviewing some of the big market forces that are transforming the cloud and the technology landscape. We will then go into a detailed overview of the cloud retention policies of the most commonly used cloud applications in businesses today, namely Office 365, Google Apps, Salesforce, and Box. We'll then briefly introduce eFolder Cloudfinder and provide you with a look at eFolder's the Cloudfinder solution. Pardon me. Questions are strongly encouraged throughout. We've planned a special Q&A section at the end of today's discussion, but you may submit the questions as we go along, and we will try to address your questions on the fly. So let's get started and get into it. Let's talk about market forces first. This is not news to any of our partners on the call today, but the move to the cloud is happening. It's happening fast, and it's a massive shift. More and more workloads, whether we're talking small, medium businesses or enterprises, are now moving are taking place in the cloud and being processed in the cloud. Just a couple statistics to give some context to the overall discussion. By 2018, over $180 billion will be spent on cloud applications. The U.S. is really a market where this is happening the fastest. There's a very robust cloud applications ecosystem, and already by 2014, the number of workloads running in the cloud outpaced the number of workloads that are actually being run on premises. And you see it in a couple other different dimensions. The vast majority of small, medium businesses today are using some form of software as a service application in the cloud. And the growth with cloud applications is just far outpacing what's happening on premises. Now, eFolder, we have been in the MSP channel for a long time, and we have over 2,300 MSPs working with us today worldwide. So there's a ton of infrastructure and software and services that are running on premises at clients, but it's really all around the rate of growth. And the rate of growth of cloud applications like Office 365 and Google Apps is far outstripping, say, for on-premise Exchange deployment. So when we look at what the most commonly deployed applications are, these are the names that come to mind: Office 365, Google Apps, or Google Apps for Work, as it's now called, Salesforce, and Box. The reality is that what people often don't realize is with the shift to cloud applications, there is definitely increased resiliency for these applications. The big challenge for your clients and for your businesses today is not outages of Office 365 or Google Apps. That is a very rare occurrence. It's not, it's not really the big challenge because companies like Microsoft or Salesforce are experts at running massively scalable software applications in the cloud and keeping them up and running. Now, there have been, noteworthy outages over the years, but they're becoming fewer and fewer. The big issue really is to think about is once the production system is running in the cloud, you need the same levels of backup and data retention that you've traditionally had with on-premises software applications. Things like Exchange or SQL databases or line of business applications have traditionally had very robust backup and disaster recovery capabilities sitting behind them, if you will, and protecting all of the data and the ability to quickly recover those applications. That's, eFolder's core business today. Biggest business is really backup and disaster recovery, where we're providing on-site and cloud-based recovery, and we're protecting all of that data against any kind of problem that happens, whether it's an everyday disaster like a server failing, or a natural disaster, or even just user error, databases becoming corrupted, users making mistakes, data getting deleted. There's very robust data protection on premises today in most businesses. Now, the issue is with the shift to the cloud is while the underlying software application is going to be highly resilient, users are still users, and users are the biggest risk to business data. The inadvertent deletion of data that may be responsive in a lawsuit or an internal investigation, employee ne'er-do-wells who may be trying to cover their tracks to destroy data, admins who may inadvertently goof up a migration. All of these sorts of things are the issues that can jeopardize business data. And once the production environment is living in the cloud, you have to be just as attuned and sensitive to the risks of data loss. And so data loss in the cloud is a huge reality because users are still the weakest link in any data protection strategy. And so with all of these applications, you really need to keep two things in mind. Number one, the first thing is that users can still destroy data. And number two, each one of these applications has kind of a tiered offering, going everything from an SMB flavor of the product or even a consumer grade version of the product. One step up of that, you usually have the SMB version of the product, and then you have the enterprise version of the product. And at every layer in that service offering, you've got different levels of retention and data protection in place. And that's really the core of what we're going to be talking about in today's webinar. So what I'm going to do in the next couple sets of slides is walk through these four very commonly deployed applications and review with you what the standard retention policies are and what the potential data loss risks are with each one of these applications. So let's first talk about Office 365. Office 365 is very relevant for eFolder and for our channel partners because the vast majority of our partners are big Microsoft partners. We've all been deploying Exchange environments for well over a decade and providing really robust disaster recovery for these environments to promote collaboration and communication. And email remains the most critical application in any business today. Now, Office 365 is a really compelling bundle of software and services that is available from Microsoft, and all of our partners are rapidly adopting Office 365. Some people are taking it at different speeds, but it's inexorable, and it's a really compelling. Microsoft has put together a really compelling bundle of productivity software and email and calendar and collaboration technology in a very well put together bundle. Now, the reality is, though, however, there are holes, there are gaps. It's a tiered offering with SMB flavors and enterprise versions of the product, and there are data loss risks. So let's talk about one of the first of the three major components or four major components of the product and talk about what those data loss risks are. The first is SharePoint Online. SharePoint Online is included in Office 365, and the key thing you need to realize with SharePoint is that their risks of kind of users destroying data and not noticing it in time are fairly low. And that's because with SharePoint Online, there is a tiered recycle bin approach in the product, which has been in place when SharePoint was primarily deployed online as well. But basically, when a user deletes something in SharePoint Online, it'll stay in their own user recycle bin for 30 days. And then it will go to the site recycle bin for an additional 93 days, and then the second stage recycle bin for an additional 93 days. So the likelihood, that's I think upwards of like 216 days. So the likelihood that data gets destroyed and then or trashed and then somebody needs it later, it's fairly low that it's going to happen in a short amount of time. However, the challenge is that the larger the customer, the more sophisticated their use of SharePoint Online, the more likelihood there is that sometime down the road, we're talking weeks and months out, somebody will discover that something's been destroyed or thrown out, and it only was living online, had only been placed online, or the machine where it was local to was not properly backed up and has now been overwritten, and the data only lived online, and now you've got a situation where the online system was the primary system of record for that content, and now that data has been destroyed and is now lost forever. And we're running into this a lot for instance, in the education vertical, where you've got small colleges and universities have adopted SharePoint Online as their main document repository for student work. And what's ended up happening is that students have deposited the primary copy of their student work product in these online systems, and then the student graduates and moves on, and the data then gets destroyed by the college or university, and then 3 or 4 years later the student comes back and says, hey, I want my work back, and that data is now gone forever. And so with Office 365, there's no additional archiving capability that can be added on to the application. So, with SharePoint Online, the risk that somebody's going to throw away something that's needed, within recent memory is pretty low. But it's as you deal with, more sophisticated users of SharePoint Online, and as you deal with organizations that have a lot of users coming and going potentially on and off the system, the risk of permanently losing critical business content goes up. And in each one of these cases, there are footnotes to the relevant places you can go research some of these details on your own. Now, if we change gears and talk about email, so Exchange Online is a key component of Office 365. And what you see is that, first of all, this is really where the tiering becomes pretty vital. So the first issue is that if you've deployed Office 365 to your clients and they delete an email, that email will stay in the user's deleted items folder indefinitely. This wasn't always the case with Office 365, but back in February, Microsoft changed this, and this is now the case. It'll stay in the deleted items folder. However, users can go in and actually empty or purge their deleted items folder. Now, what will happen is within 30 days, that mail after the purge of that inbox will be gone forever. And so again, you have a situation where you have a robust system, you have business critical communications, and you've got a situation where users can actually go in there and actually completely purge content that may be critically important to the business in the future, if there's a lawsuit or if there's an investigation, if there's just a business need to get their hands on a critical piece of email communication. The user can actually go in and destroy that information. Now, Microsoft does, acknowledging the importance of long-term retention and archiving of mail, does have an add-on archiving capability, and it's called Exchange Online Archiving, and it comes standard with the E3 version of the product. So over here in the right-hand column, E3 includes Exchange Online Archiving, but is the most expensive version of Office 365. But for the SMB version of the product, there is no standard archiving available. But you can add it for $3 per user per month directly from Microsoft, and partners can resell that and share in that revenue stream. But really the important point on this slide here is that archiving is not a default piece of the overall solution. So you need to be thinking through in a very intentional sort of way what your long-term email retention and archiving solution is for Office 365. And then the last piece that we're going to talk about today with Office 365 is OneDrive for Business. Again, kind of similar to SharePoint Online, the likelihood that a user is going to delete something and then in the short amount of time and not discover it's missing if it's frequently used is pretty low, because there is the same kind of concept that is inherited from the SharePoint product line of a secondary site collection recycle bin that the administrators can control. But again, it's not that long amount of time. I mean, it's less than 200 days, and there's no long-term archiving capability you can license from Microsoft to add for OneDrive for Business. And then very interestingly, there's also a situation where a lot of file collaboration systems or sync systems today, it's very common that the primary copy of a document may live in the online system but not locally anymore for a wide number of reasons, because of collaboration, because of the way users are collaborating on content in the cloud. The risk here is that an admin deletes somebody's account, say an employee who recently quit, and all of that content will be gone within 14 days. So with organizations, with the kind of the rate at which people change jobs, with the complexity of ads, moves, and changes, again, there's big risks of data loss in these sorts of scenarios. So just to kind of summarize in Office 365, SharePoint Online, deleted data sits in the site recovery bins for 216 days, but could be gone forever. If you're not mindful of where that content is and whether it's been protected. Exchange Online, the big risk is users who purge their own deleted items folder, and you haven't licensed an add-on archiving solution. And then OneDrive for Business, there's no archiving capability add-on, and a user account that's deleted, all of the data would be gone within 14 days. So let's kind of change gears and talk about Google Apps. Google Apps is, the picture is a little simpler, but kind of more extreme in some ways. So with Google Apps, items that are put into the trash on either the entry-level Google Apps version or the Gmail version, personal Gmail version, and even the work version, without any additional add-ons, items that are put into the trash are purged within 30 days and are then gone forever. Now, Google does make available an add-on service called Google Vault, which costs $5 per user per month retail, and has very rich long-term email archiving and retention capabilities. But again, many users who are using Google Apps may not realize, like, it's very simple to completely destroy mail and have it be gone forever if you don't have the right data protection policies in place. Now, in the case of Google Drive, the risks here again are similar. That something that's a Google Drive document that is put into the trash and it's purged, the data can be gone forever. And there's no, when you add on Vault, it doesn't provide extra levels of protection for Google Drive. Pardon me. So, for Google Apps, Gmail, there's no retention beyond 30 days of mail, and unless you add Vault. And then for Google Drive, Vault does not protect items that have been deleted from the Google Drive production repository, and there's only 25 days of days to actually recover something that's been deleted. So again, massive data loss risks are possible with Google Apps. Let's talk about Salesforce. Salesforce is just continuing to be more and more adopted by businesses of all sizes. eFolder, we're a big Salesforce shop. Any company that's, they're the market share leader, A. B, they're growing like a weed. They continue year over year, continue to grow. And companies of all sizes can easily adopt Salesforce. And if you have a company that's sales-driven, it's highly likely that they're going to be using Salesforce. Now, one of the huge problems with Salesforce is the built-in data retention capabilities are extremely I took off my headset because it apparently was breaking up, so I'm now switching to my handset. So Salesforce, the issue is there's first of all, one observation with Salesforce is that what you often find is that there are usually many administrators in a Salesforce environment, and so the biggest risk in a Salesforce environment is Carlo, make sure you're muted, please. The big risk with the Salesforce environment is that the administrators can actually overwrite data, corrupt data, delete account records, delete contact records, and that data only sits in a recycle bin for 15 days. There's no additional thing you can license from Salesforce to get that extra data protection or get archiving of any kind. And your solution, if a Salesforce administrator makes a mistake, are pretty crude. So if you delete a bunch of records and you only discover 16 days later that you've deleted the data, you can actually go back to Salesforce to get the data back, but it's a situation where it's limited, expensive, and slow. And the data is only recoverable for 90 days after that initial 15-day window, and you actually need to pay Salesforce $10,000 to go and do the data recovery, and it takes upwards of 20 days. So the reality here is that's simply inadequate, inappropriate for most small and medium business budgets. And Salesforce data, like your SQL database, like your the data warehouse that resides in a line of business application, is really the lifeblood of a business, and you've got to have measures to help protect your client's Salesforce data. So if we go finish up with Box, let's look at the situation with Box. Now, Box actually is pretty impressive in one way, which is they've got 3 tiers of service: starter, business, and enterprise. Business is about $15 per user per month, and enterprise is about $35 per user per month. The impressive thing is that Box recently added more robust data retention, configurable retention, on the middle product line there, the Box for Business. So that was a pretty good move on their part, and does solve a lot of problems. So the administrator in a Box account can go in and configure the system so that no matter what a user does, the data will never be destroyed. The challenge here is kind of back to the situation we're talking about with SharePoint Online. There's no ability to archive, if you will, a user in perpetuity. Your only option when you kind of decommission a potential user is to transfer the data to another user. And if someone fails to do that, the data will be lost. So again, pretty good protections built into the product for the risks that may come along with frontline users making a mistake. But if administrators make a mistake and delete accounts, and that data is needed for any number of reasons, you can risk a pretty significant data loss incident. So just to summarize in a Box, there are configurable retention policies on the business and enterprise tiers, but there are risks of permanently purging or deleting data when user accounts are decommissioned. So this kind of brings us to, okay, we've kind of thoroughly explored the problem. One of the tools we will be circulating to all of the partners that attended today's event is a quick 2-page guide which summarizes all of the points we've just discussed, along with all the relevant footnotes for you to do your second checks of our data here. But really what we're trying to paint is a picture, which is just like with on-premises technology, data protection and resiliency of business operation is something that is highly complex. There are many potholes and nuances and corner cases and issues and incidents that can occur that can jeopardize business data, jeopardize the productivity of your clients. It's your job to be expert in these topics, and it's your job to find the appropriate technology solutions to make sure that whatever the off-the-shelf software solution is available, that you add on extra services, extra support, extra levels of expert configuration so that these services can be improved dramatically and meet the needs of your clients. And that's really where eFolder Cloudfinder comes in. Cloudfinder is one of eFolder's newest product lines. We acquired a company back in July of 2014 called Cloudfinder. And this product line is eFolder's solution for data protection for SaaS applications and cloud applications. Today we support 4 of the most commonly used business applications out there: Office 365, Google Apps, Salesforce, and Box. And what the application allows you to do is to take any one of these cloud applications and connect it to the Cloudfinder service in a very simple couple steps. And it provides backup, search, restore, and reporting for all of that SaaS data. So all of the challenges and problems we just described in the front part of today's webinar can be solved by adding Cloudfinder on top of any one of these cloud applications. When you deploy Cloudfinder in tandem with one of these cloud applications, all of the data is protected in a second site backup. So this sort of kind of goes to the core of what one of the big challenges is. You always want your backups to be separate from the production system, and that's what Cloudfinder supplies. Is you've got your production environment of Office 365, and now all your data is saved to another second vendor, a second site, a second data center that you control. And so it's second site backup. The data is tamper-proof, so one of the things you have to do from a compliance perspective in many cases, and just from a control and administrative perspective, is to make sure that junior admins or employees can't tamper with their own business data. There's a wide number of reasons why somebody would want to do that if they've got ill intent. And what you want to do is you want to have a tamper-proof safe haven that's separate. The other big challenge that organizations are facing, and this is really a problem as you move upstream into medium-sized organizations or into mid-sized enterprises, is with the proliferation of cloud applications, you have data becoming siloed. And the IT department or you, the MSP, don't have a unified view of all of that SaaS data. And the data gets trapped in silos. And what you'll often see, say if you take a company that may have 6 or 7 or 800 employees, so a bigger company, what you'll often see is that the main part of the company might be Office 365. There might be a division of 100 employees that is utilizing Google Apps because that's what they were using before they got acquired, and they haven't done the migration yet. And then the marketing department's gone off and adopted Box without anybody's permission in the IT department. So in no time what you have is you have a situation where you've got sensitive corporate data living in 3 different systems. Nobody's got a unified view of it. If you have to do an internal investigation or there's a lawsuit, it's very complicated to search across all that data. And so really, full-text search is one of the killer apps of Cloudfinder. All of the data is indexed. All of the files themselves are indexed and are searchable. And what this gives you, the MSP or the IT department, if you delegate administration to one of your clients, is you can search across all of this SaaS data. So you can very quickly identify and find responsive content in the context of a legal suit, or if there's an internal investigation, you can track down emails that are relevant to a certain investigation. On a more practical level, you can find content that people can't find where it went. So there's a whole host of different use cases for full-text search. This is a non-trivial feature. This requires massive amounts of computing resources in eFolder's cloud to index and make searchable all of this content. And then recovery is super fast. So you can imagine a whole host of different recovery scenarios. You could have an admin who's destroyed data in Salesforce. You could have an admin who's inadvertently deleted an employee Office 365 account, and you now want all of that mail residing with a different employee who's maybe their manager. There's a whole host of different recovery scenarios you can imagine. And you can do everything from very basic restores where you just want to identify the content and then download it, to actually restoring content and users and data right back into the application itself. And all of this gives you, the MSP, the ability to govern this, govern the data that's residing in this cloud ecosystem. And really, from a business perspective, our view is that eFolder's job is to help our MSP partners build managed services on top of cloud applications. We're all very familiar with the margins that Microsoft supplies, for instance, on Office 365. They are dramatically less, though they're recurring, they are dramatically less than the revenue share Microsoft partners have traditionally enjoyed on things like Small Business Server or Microsoft Exchange deployments. And so there's a crying need to figure out, how do you monetize the cloud? And in eFolder's view, Exchange Online is just as complicated for a 50-person company as having an on-premise Exchange server, because adds, moves, and changes, proper user configuration, properly configuring retention and archiving, these are all complex situations that don't go away just because the application is now running in the cloud. And so MSPs still have a huge amount of value to add in terms of the proper security configuration and deployment, the ongoing management, the add, moves, and changes, the help desk for the users. And what you need is backup and recovery and archiving and retention that's as robust as what you traditionally have deployed on on-premise Exchange environments. And Cloudfinder is one of the pillars that would allow an MSP to go out there and do that and build a managed service offering that lives right on top of Office 365. So whether your clients are paying Microsoft directly for their Office 365 subscription or whether you're licensing it from Microsoft Wholesale, we view that there's a huge MSP managed service offering opportunity to layer right on top of Office 365, and having backup search and restore capability is a critical pillar of what your offering should be for your clients. So let's go through a couple. Let me do this. Let me go to the Q&A log and just see how things have stacked up there. Just to remind you, you can ask questions, and let me just go to the Q&A log and just try to address some of your questions right now. Okay, let's see here. So Yonana10 asks, so if we have Office 365 with E3, does it mean that we should be good with our email backup? And I think the answer is yes. E3 will have you covered for email archiving. And Exchange Online Archiving is a very robust archiving solution from Microsoft, and it has you covered. What it doesn't address really is SharePoint Online on the one hand and OneDrive for Business. So anyway, that's the key thing, and the reality is E3 is pretty expensive, and so in many business model we think that is superior for partners is to deploy the lower end versions of Office 365 and then add eFolder Cloudfinder on top, because you can license it on a wholesale basis at a very competitive rate, and you get greater application coverage because you're also protecting the SharePoint content and the OneDrive for Business content. Okay, let's see here. Danushka asks, can we back up emails to one of our own data centers rather than the eFolder data centers? And I mean, so that's really, if you can imagine, like a private cloud version of Cloudfinder, where you would want the actual archive itself to reside behind someone else's firewall in your own colo or in the client's data center. We definitely think that's a great idea, and it's on our roadmap, but that feature is not supported today. So the main capability right now is when you connect Cloudfinder, the Cloudfinder service, it backs it up into a data center that is administered by eFolder. So Andre asks, is all of the data encrypted, and if so, what level of encryption? It's encrypted with 256-bit AES encryption, and yes, all of the data that resides in the eFolder data centers for Cloudfinder is encrypted. We will be, Lyndon's asking for copies of the slides, and we will supply those. And we will have a recording of this session available later. So with that, let's go through let me give you just a quick overview of some of the key features of Cloudfinder, and then we'll wrap up with pricing and then answer more of your questions. So multi-service support. So one of the first things here is that we talked about this challenge of siloed data. And really one of the cool capabilities of Cloudfinder is you can deploy, if you have a client that's using two or more of these applications, you can deploy, you can license it for both applications, and then you have a de-siloed situation where you've got a control plane and you have visibility into all of the data. So we've got broad application support, which addresses many of the main needs today. We support them in a deep sort of way. So we support the email in Office 365. We support the emails and the files and the folders and the attachments and the metadata around files. And in each application, that's the case. And then you can really solve a lot of really thorny problems for especially larger customers that may have adopted multiple applications. So, just like any good backup solution, you want it to be highly automated and reliable. And we basically back up the data 3 times a day, and it all goes to this safe haven where we have really high availability and reliability, just like all eFolder cloud services. We talked a little bit about full text search and the way it works. Is very powerful. We call it instant full text search because we've already indexed all the data, and it allows you to search across, using keywords across all different kinds of content. You can do advanced searches where you narrow down your search criteria based upon file types and the like, and you can also you have very rich, access to versioning of all of these files as well, and so it's extremely powerful and gives you as the MSP the ability to really control and manage your client's data and solve virtually any kind of data loss incident that may occur with their cloud applications. So just a little bit more on just how Restore works. Obviously, you can just simply download the content as the admin to a local machine. But more commonly, what you're going to want to do is, say, restore a user account inside Office 365 to a different user. Or you're going to want to take a whole folder of documents from Box and move it to a different user. All of those sort of cross-user restore capabilities are very simple to do right inside the application. And then there's rich reporting and monitoring capabilities. So, monitoring the health of backups and the reliability and the fact that they've been completed is a critical job of a managed service provider. And Cloudfinder has a rich set of reporting capabilities at the client user level for you to monitor the health of these backups. We do not yet support integration with PSA tools. However, that is coming. And then last but not least, we talked a little bit about encryption. The data is encrypted both in transit and at rest, and we have a series of third-party validations of the levels of security and data privacy that eFolder ensures. So just to kind of sum up, we provide a very rich data backup, retention, and archiving solution across these key SaaS applications, defending against accidental data loss or malicious deletion that could occur by a rogue employee or by a hacker who's gained privileged access to a system. It gives you very robust business continuity and the ability to continue operating in the face of virtually any kind of data loss incident that can come a business's way. In today's world where employees come and go with a high degree of frequency, having a solution like Cloudfinder is a much more cost-effective means of retaining this data for long periods of time for things to defend against things like lawsuits, or disputes that may come up and only become known about months or weeks or months or years after an employee departs. And then there's a whole host of different very strict regulatory requirements on even small businesses in certain highly regulated industries to retain data of various kinds. And companies of all sizes are faced with the need to do internal investigations and to respond to legal inquiries. A picture of how the solution is priced. eFolder's philosophy is we supply managed service providers with services at competitive wholesale prices that allow you to turn around and bundle them into your overall managed service offering, and mark them up and make a very healthy 50, 60, 70% recurring gross margin. Our view is that you can easily command $3 per user per month for backing up and protecting any one of these cloud applications. It's like an insurance policy on a company's cloud data. And at scale, we think that Cloudfinder should be a standard offering for any MSP that is providing a very robust, one throat to choke, complete service offering. And so when you start getting up into the 1,000 or 2,500 user level, your wholesale price with eFolder goes down to around $1 a user per application per month, and allowing you to turn around and make very healthy recurring gross margins from your clients. So here's a couple options for you to kick the tires and try out Cloudfinder on your own. We have a live demo environment. You just go to cloudfinder.com and then use the CF for Cloudfinder, CF all demo, username and password, and you go in there and there's an unbreakable demo environment which allows you to go in and kind of play around with full text search and see how you would restore data, see how you would administer the solution. And then to take that to another level, every MSP that eFolder works with is entitled to access your own NFR account. So just go to cloudfinder.com/become a partner. Just follow that link there. And you can initiate your NFR account, protect your own, if your company's running on Office 365 as an example, put this in place for your own organization so you have the best backup and protection for your own environment, give your techs an opportunity to become familiar with the product, and then you can hopefully start deploying it to your own clients and baking it into your overall managed service offering. So with that, why don't I go back, let me do a quick time check here. Okay, we've got a couple minutes for questions. Let me go to the Q&A log. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, so Bob asked, can you expand on the concept of business continuity in Cloudfinder? Well, when we speak of business continuity in its most generic sense, what we're talking about is keeping users up and running and productive at all times. And when I was speaking to kind of the very easy-to-use restore capabilities of Cloudfinder, you can think of many different examples of where data's been lost, data's been misplaced, user accounts have been destroyed, and the name of the game is getting whomever needs that data back up in operation ASAP. And so that's really what we mean by business continuity. I mean, we're not virtualizing servers in the cloud or anything like that. What we're doing is we're giving the ability for you as the MSP or your client, their admin, to quickly do a restore. Say there's been an employee who's left. Somehow their Office 365 account was decommissioned, and now you've only discovered it 10 days later, and you want to make sure that all of their email and all of their content and all of their OneDrive for Business content gets quickly restored to their manager. That's what we mean by business continuity, is being able to quickly take that data and restore it right inside of Office 365 so it's very quick and nimble for that company. So let's see here. So David asks, are you recommending that Cloudfinder be a replacement for Online Archive for Office 365? And the question is the second part is, if so, what keeps the mailbox from growing and getting too large, causing issues with large mailboxes? The answer to the first question is yes. We believe that Cloudfinder is a very compelling alternative for archiving mail from Office 365, in addition to protecting SharePoint Online and OneDrive for business accounts. And then the next question is, mail will grow over time, naturally enough. We do bundle 30 gigabytes with every Cloudfinder user. All of that storage is pooled at the partner level. So let me just go back to the rate card, because this is where it's addressed here. So pooling happens at the partner level. So the included storage is a lot to begin with, A, and B, when you start pooling this level of data at the partner level, what we have found is that the likelihood of overages are pretty low. So there are some features we envision around giving even more granular retention policies to partners when you start dealing with mail stores that are years old and that sort of thing. Those features are coming down the road. Right now, the default is unlimited retention of that data, and what we've found is we haven't had a lot of issues with the amount of included storage because it's pooled at the partner level. Eric asked about calendar contacts in Office 365, and the answer is yes, they are both protected. Dunashka, I think I'm pronouncing your name correctly, would like to know can you get a demo of Cloudfinder? Yes. Anybody who joined today's call, if you want a live guided demo with a product expert, all you have to do is talk to your eFolder account manager if you're an existing partner, or one of our sales specialists on the other end, and they will connect you with a live one-on-one demo, guided demo with a product expert. Gloria asks about the copies of the slides. Yes, we will circulate copies of the slides and the handy 2-page guide which we've developed, which summarizes some of the key takeaways here. And then there looks like there's one more question, and then we'll probably wrap with that. Andre wants to know, does Cloudfinder have to be deployed to all users in the organization or just to some of the users? Great question, Andre. You can decide. You can deploy it on a per-user basis. Yeah, so that looks like that exhausts. Let's see here. One more question just came in. Rick, do the total users have to be from a single customer? Great question. And the answer to that is no. When you're licensing these users, you can split them up in any combination you want. So no. So these user counts are not kind of tied to an organization. They are tied to the MSP as the wholesale licensee of the service, and you can slice and dice them in any combination you wish. And just so it's clear, if you had a user at a client where you were protecting both their Salesforce data and their Office 365 install, that would be 2 licenses. Just so that's clear, okay? And kind of share a little bit about the vision for the product. I mean, today we're supporting 4 applications, but there are literally dozens of other applications that you can imagine that have this same data retention, archiving, and recovery and full text search need. And right now we're focused on a couple other feature development areas on the product, but we will pretty soon turn our attention back to broadening the portfolio of protected applications. Okay. Yeah, so Rick asked a follow-on question about user tiers and pricing. As we grow and we add more users, does the discount kick in? And the answer to that is yes. So as you, for instance, as you would go from 999 licensed users to 1,000 users, your pricing for all 1,000 users would go from $1.30 a month per licensed user down to $1.10. So these aren't bands where you're paying a different price at every cohort, if you will. It's as you cross through certain volume thresholds, your pricing across the board gets re-rated across your entire base. Okay, so with that, I'm going to wrap up today's webinar. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Again, please leverage these resources we have available, the live demo environment, the NFR account, which is free for any MSP, and you can also get a live demo with a product specialist at your own discretion. So thank you very much. This is Ted Hulsy. This is today's eFolder Expert Series, and hopefully this content was helpful for all of you thinking about how to protect the data and productivity of your clients. Have a great day. Take care.